Today's video is sponsored and is based on articles originally written on The Athletic. For the best ad-free baseball coverage, head to theathletic.com/Dawson Wright to get The Athletic for only $1 a month. Well, that was a season that happened. Although it wasn't ideal, at the end of a bizarre 60-game sprint, we have our World Series winner, and we are now headed towards a very interesting offseason. But the season's end, of course, means we are back again for the 4th year in a row, and here we go, what every single MLB team must do this offseason. Really quick, I just want to say, Kevin Cash, why? Alright, the Rays are in a great position to make it back to another World Series next year and the years to follow, but they have a few moves to get done. First and foremost, the Rays need to accept Charlie Morton's $15 million club option to bring him back. Reliever Aaron Loup is the only actual free agent the Rays have this year, and they can afford and should bring him back as well. Catcher is the only real need I see the Rays having, and there are options on the free agent market to bring in more offensive production from that position. While another early playoff exit isn't exactly what the Yankees had in mind, they need to prep for a busy offseason. DJ LeMahieu, James Paxton, J.A. Happ, and Masahiro Tanaka will all be free agents. For the starting rotation, Tanaka seems like the only guy the Yankees would bring back, with Domingo Germán and Luis Severino set to return next year. The top priority for the Yankees should be to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. There is a possibility they let him go to move Gleyber to second and prepare for the golden shortstop free agency class next season, but LeMahieu has been essential to the Yankees lineup over the last 2 seasons. He certainly won't go for cheap, but he will be worth the price. To keep progress rolling into next year, the Jays will have to make some moves, most likely on the free agent market. While their starting pitching depth is solid, another high-level starter would help take some of the pressure off Nate Pearson in his second full year. I wouldn't expect them to sign Bauer, but guys like James Paxton, Masahiro Tanaka, and Mike Minor should all be on their list. Toronto also needs to pick up a third baseman, but as long as their young stars keep developing, we will see them back in the postseason sooner than later. The O's are still in rebuilding mode, so I wouldn't expect them to do much this winter. They should look at some veterans to add to their pitching depth and pick up Jose Iglesias' $3 million club option, but that's pretty much it. The good news is for Baltimore is they did better than expected in 2020 and are starting to show real signs of improvement. Things didn't go so great for the post-Mookie Red Sox, did they? Their manager was fired, their pitching staff was the worst in baseball, and they finished at the bottom of the AL East. With the returns of Sale and Rodriguez, the pitching will improve, but Boston still needs major help. For starters, Matt Moore, Homer Bailey, and possibly the return of John Lester should all be on their list. For relievers, the Red Sox will need to fill the back end of the bullpen, and Trevor May and Joakim Soria look like realistic options. Jackie Bradley Jr. is a free agent this year, and Boston should bring him back without many other options in center. The Red Sox still have a lot to figure out for their future, and this offseason will be a great tell of what the future direction of the organization is going to be. Just like the Yankees, the Twins have a very busy offseason ahead of them. Nelson Cruz, Marwin Gonzalez, Alex Avila, Ehire Adrianza, Jake Odorizzi, Rich Hill, Trevor May, and Tyler Clippard are all free agents. The biggest priority for the Twins will be to sign back Nelson Cruz to at maximum a 2-year deal. Offensively, the Twins can fill a lot of positions internally. The catching situation does have some questions, but with Avila becoming a free agent, the best option looks to be to pair Mitch Garver and Ryan Jeffers together until Jeffers is ready to be the full-time starter. On the pitching side, the Twins should look to bring back Odorizzi on a 1-year deal after his down season and sign back the depth that leaves in free agency. The Indians have a complicated situation, and it could go one of 2 ways. Either A, Lindor stays in Cleveland for 2021 and the team tries to improve their offense in free agency, or B, the Indians do a soft reset and Lindor is traded before 2021 even starts. The Indians pitching is solid enough where if I was in that situation I would go with option A, but option B seems much more like the path Cleveland is going to take. If they do go that route, they should also trade Carlos Carrasco and some of their pitching depth for high-level hitting prospects. The White Sox emerged as one of the top teams in the American League before their collapse at the end of the season that ended up getting their manager fired. Good news is a lot of solutions to their problems are already in the organization. Edwin Encarnacion failed to hit anything at the designated hitter spot, but top prospect Andrew Vaughn is MLB ready to fill in at DH and first base when needed. Closer Alex Colome is a free agent, and unless the White Sox can get him on a cheaper deal, they should let him go. Chicago has more than enough pitching depth in the organization to fill that hole. The only real moves the White Sox need to make this year would be at starting pitching and possibly another reliever. Obviously, Bauer is the top prize, but there are plenty of other starters on the market that could fill in one of the top 3 spots in the rotation. And if Chicago decides to promote Aaron Bummer as their next closer, they should sign another long reliever like Yusmeiro Petit. The Royals are still working on their rebuild, but there are a few things they could do for 2021. The lineup is in need of a boost in OBP and another outfielder, so veteran options Robbie Grossman or Matt Joyce would be good free agent pickups. And just like they did in 2020, sign some relievers looking for bounce-back seasons to eventually flip at the trade deadline for prospects. Here we are 4 years later, and the tank is continuing its journey through Detroit. This year, the Tigers should try to re-sign a few of their free agents, ideally Scope and Crone, but that's basically it. Maybe they could copy the Royals and sign some low-risk free agents like Wade Davis to use as trade chips next July. Following another early playoff exit, it's going to be a long offseason for the A's. Shortstop Marcus Semien enters free agency after a down season, but the A's should try to bring him back on a multi-year deal. The biggest concern I have for Oakland this offseason is the bullpen. Yusmeiro Petit, Joakim Soria, TJ McFarland, and Liam Hendricks are all free agents this year, and it'll be difficult for Oakland to sign even 2 out of the 4 back. The best bet would be for the A's to try and fill vacated spots with cheap veterans like Sergio Romo, or internally, James Capillarian could take a spot as well. And A's, sign back Tommy LaStella. You need him. The Astros need bullpen help and to sort out what to do with their outfield. Outfielders George Springer, Michael Brantley, and Josh Reddick will all be free agents, and the Astros payroll is already near the top of the league. Springer is one of the best free agents on the market, and the Astros will almost certainly be outbid by another team. Brantley, on the other hand, could be a contender to come back with a qualifying offer. With Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, Houston won't have to refill every spot in their outfield/DH roles, but there will be at least one free agent outfielder that comes in. Top fits would be Jackie Bradley Jr. to emphasize defense, and former Astro Robbie Grossman. Seattle is getting closer to contending again as they finish the 2020 season only 3 games under 500. For Seattle to continue to build on their 2020 success, they will definitely need to address the cookie machine that was their 2020 bullpen. With a shaky free agent market, the Mariners could really benefit and pick up some good free agent relievers for less than their expected market value. I don't think the Mariners would want to commit to any top relievers yet, but guys like Joakim Soria, Kirby Yates, or Shane Green would all be good affordable options. The Angels failed yet again to acquire pitching over this last offseason, which, surprise, surprise, resulted in them missing the playoffs again. At least now that GM Billy Epler has been fired, the Angels should hopefully be able to get something going. The top priorities will be starting and relief pitching help, and while I don't think right now is the time to sign a pitcher to another long-term deal, luckily there is a starter on the market who may not want a long-term deal. Even if they can't land Bauer, there are plenty of starters and relievers on the market, so there really isn't an excuse this time. Oh yeah, and with Simmons becoming a free agent, why don't you go get Didi Gregorius while you're at it? Even the Rangers' shiny new stadium couldn't hide the bad baseball that was being played inside of it. With payroll coming down, the Rangers won't be able to do a 180 in 2021, and they will continue with whatever light rebuild thing they have going. Ideally, Isaiah Kiner-Falefa will become the new everyday shortstop, which means the Rangers will be looking around for a third baseman in free agency again. For this spot, Tommy LaStella or Jaith Lamb would be ideal fits, but Lamb seems more likely. There are some rumors about Lance Lynn being traded this offseason since he wasn't moved at the deadline, but to maximize his value, the Rangers should hope he performs well again and then trade him at next year's deadline. Ah, the good old Atlanta special. It's only up from here, right, Falcons? The Braves did have a great showing in 2020, and where they go from here is pretty straightforward. Out of the free agents, Marcell Ozuna, if there is a DH in the NL next year, Shane Green, and Darren O'Day should be re-signed for sure. Mark Melancon could be added to that list as well, depending on his asking price. The starting rotation could see the return of ace Mike Soroka, but I am concerned about how he will perform since his season-ending Achilles injury was on his drive leg. But there is a free agent out there that the Braves can't afford and can put them over the top. Do it, Atlanta. Although the Marlins playoff meme didn't continue this year, 2020 was definitely a success. The bullpen wasn't great, so re-signing Brad Botsberger and adding another cheap arm or two should be near the top of the priorities list. Second base is really the only position with question, and Miami should target Enrique Hernandez or Cesar Hernandez in free agency. The Phillies certainly have a lot of issues, but re-signing JT Realmuto is by far the most important thing this offseason. The front office has mentioned they are looking to cut payroll, but without Realmuto, the future of the Phillies looks a lot darker than it already is. They'll be looking like the Angels, wasting the prime years of their star player. There is some money coming off the books, and Philly should try to re-sign Gregorius and add pitching depth as well. But without JT, things certainly won't be sunny in Philadelphia. There's going to be a storm. After the World Series hangover, the Nationals do have money to spend, but they do need to remember that they might want to save some of that cash for Trey Turner and eventually Juan Soto. A team can never have enough pitching depth, and with Doolittle's departure, the Nats will need to sign some mid to lower tier relievers and possibly a fifth starter. Adam Eaton does have a $10 million club option, which the Nationals should decline, and look to bring in another impact bat in free agency. I wouldn't expect them to go after Springer, but Jock Peterson would be a good option. The Mets have a pivotal offseason ahead. New York does have a few holes on the roster to fix, and under new ownership, the Mets should have a little money to spend. Out of the top free agents, JT Realmuto should be their top priority, and they will also be looking for a permanent solution in center field. With free agent departures, the starting rotation will need some help as well, so the Mets should make a push to re-sign Stroman and add a middle-of-the-rotation starter. Right now, the Cubs are in that weird limbo stage that every championship team eventually experiences. They should be a playoff team, but they aren't good enough to win the World Series, and their core is still solid, but they are just one season away from being pulled apart. Ownership and front office motivations would imply the Cubs aren't going all in for one last run, so they don't sacrifice the limited future they have. For this offseason, John Lester and Jose Quintana are both entering free agency, and Anthony Rizzo has a $14 million club option. Depending on how depressed the market is, Quintana will probably be on his way out, but the Cubs should sign back Lester in a veteran role. With the club option, Rizzo is almost guaranteed to be back for at least one more year before he reaches free agency. Outside of some depth moves, the Cubs can't really do anything drastic without trading one of their core pieces, but these are the realities when you can't develop pitching talent to save your life. The Cardinals' offense needs significant improvements as Paul Goldschmidt can only carry a lineup so far. Yadier Molina will be the only big contract coming off the books, leaving the Cardinals without much room to improve the team in free agency. Barring a miracle trade for Nolan Arenado and some small depth moves, it's going to be a quiet offseason for the Cardinals. Colton Wong should be re-signed to a multi-year deal, and Yadier Molina and Adam Wainwright should also both be re-signed on cheaper veteran deals. The biggest question for the Reds going into this offseason will of course be Trevor Bauer. The Reds are going to make a run at Bauer as they should, but how far they are willing to push his market is unknown. If Bauer does end up leaving, the Reds will do their best to replace him internally or with a cheaper starter on the free agent market. One of the biggest concerns with Cincinnati going forward will be the offense. Shortstop is a glaring hole that will need to be addressed in free agency, but Didi Gregorius, Marcus Semien, or Andrelton Simmons would all be good fits. The corner infield spots for the Brewers have been a hole in the lineup as soon as Moustakas left for Cincinnati. It is possible that the late season addition of Daniel Vogelbach will end up being the 2021 solution at first base, but at third base, Milwaukee will need to bring in somebody new. In free agency, there are a few temporary options, depending on what ownership is willing to spend post-COVID. This is what a full tank looks like. It certainly isn't pretty, but this is what baseball in Pittsburgh is going to look like for at least another 2 seasons. Now that the tank for Kumar is complete, the Pirates might as well start the tank for Nate Savino. Trade Josh Bell to the Nationals, package Musgrove and Moran together, and trade Frazier too while you're at it. Sign some veteran relievers to flip for prospects at the trade deadline so you can boost up the farm. With the right moves, the Padres could end up dethroning the Dodgers in the NL West as soon as next season. Right now, the rotation is a little sketchy due to the health concerns of Clevinger and Lamet, but the Padres will be in the market for another starter. Bauer is an unlikely possibility. It looks like San Diego is going to be more in the market for a back-end starter to add depth. This year, Trevor Rosenthal, Kirby Yates, Jurickson Profar, Garrett Richards, and Jason Castro will be free agents. Richards and Castro seem to be on their way out, and the Padres would like to sign at least one out of the trio of Yates, Rosenthal, and Profar. Profar would be the best option to bring back due to his versatility and the Padres' pitching depth. If San Diego decided they need more bullpen help down the line, they could afford to trade for some by the midseason deadline. The biggest needs for the Giants right now are pitching depth and a lefty infield bat. Tommy La Stella would be a perfect fit considering he could play third and second base, and the Giants have the money to sign him to a deal similar to Wilmer Flores. As for pitching, Kevin Gausman and Drew Smyly need to be re-signed, and they should be in the market for another veteran starter as well. Closing out games was one of the biggest issues for the Giants in 2020, so finding a lockdown closer should be near the top of the priority list. Nolan Arenado has a player option following the 2021 season, and Trevor Story will become an unrestricted free agent after 2021. This leaves the Rockies with a decision to make on whether they push forward to try and compete in 2021 or start the full tank. The starting rotation was solid in 2020, but after the first 14 games, the offense showed their signs of getting older. If the Rockies go for it in 2021, they will need to find a new first baseman and center fielder in free agency to boost the lineup's production. Colorado can wait to see how they are doing at the deadline and sell Arenado and Story if things aren't working out. The D-bats do have a little bit of money to spend this offseason with some contracts coming off the books, but they probably won't make any big moves. I don't think the Diamondbacks will be ready to contend again next year just yet, but there are a few depth pieces that can be added on offense in the back end of the bullpen as some of their top prospects reach the majors. Well, the Dodgers finally did it. This offseason, LA will do the best they can to try and bring back the World Series squad for another shot at the title. Since Mookie Betts is now locked up, this leaves Justin Turner, Jock Peterson, Enrique Hernandez, Pedro Baez, Alex Wood, and Blake Treinen as this year's free agents. Turner is entering his age 36 season next year, and while he is the best third baseman on the market right now, the Dodgers should stay away if he demands a long-term deal. Tommy La Stella would be a good fit for his spot. He is younger and adds a low strikeout, high on-base percentage bat to the lineup. Hernandez along with Baez should be re-signed, and the Dodgers have enough outfield depth to let Peterson go. Other than a third baseman in free agency, the Dodgers' targets will be relief pitching and possibly another veteran starter for depth. I wouldn't expect LA to be bid spenders this year. They need to get the money bags ready for Corey Seager and Cody Bellinger. Thank you all for watching, and let me know in the comments section below what move do you want your team to make this offseason. If you enjoyed, be sure to drop a like button on the video and subscribe to the channel if you are new. Once again, I would like to thank The Athletic for sponsoring this video. Click the link in the description to get The Athletic for only $1 a month. It's an amazing deal. They have some of the best writers in the business like Ken Rosenthal and Jason Stark. I read it every single day. It is the best in sports writing. But thanks again, everybody, and I will see you all soon.
I'm so sick of these games. Every single day it started feeling the same. Another goes by, guess I'm running late. It's so difficult when I have no idea what comes tomorrow. Doing